Esta jornada. Soy Paula Molina, soy periodista y
Very
para
well,
mí
then we're going to begin
es un
today's
honor, la
session.
verdad,
I
ser
am Paula
parte de
Molina,
esta
and it
serie
is
de
an honor for
webinarios
me
que
to be
comienzan
a
durante el
part
día de
of
hoy con
this
este primer
series of
encuentro
webinars that begin today
relativos al tema de la
with
igualdad de
this first
género y el
session
mundo
regarding
laboral.
gender equality
Han sido las
and
embajadas nórdicas de
the
Chile,
world
embajada
of
de Dinamarca, de
work.
Finlandia, de
The
Noruega y
embassies of
la
Chile,
embajada de Suecia, las que programan esta serie
Denmark,
de webinarios que además van a estar disponibles a través
Norway,
de podcast con el tema de la equidad de
Sweden
género en
and
el mundo
Finland
laboral.
are
Esto
addressing
cuenta con el
these
apoyo del
topics
Consejo
on
Nórdicos, un
the
proyecto que forma
gender
parte de las
equality
políticas exteriores
topics.
de los países
This is
nórdicos
part
para promover
of the
la
foreign
igualdad de
policies of
género.
these Nordic
Lo
countries in trying to
sabemos, lo
promote
intuimos,
gender
lo vivimos,
equality.
la
We
participación
know
plena de
we live
todas,
this
todos y
every
todes
day.
en el
The
mercado laboral formal
participation
es un
of
tema de
everybody, men
enorme,
and
enorme
women
importancia.
in the
El
labor
crecimiento
world,
económico de un país, pero también
and
nuestro
which is
desarrollo
something that's
social,
very
nuestro desarrollo
important in
como
the
comunidad,
economic growth
el
as
acceso a
well as
oportunidades,
economic
la capacidad
development,
de
as well as
empoderarnos de manera
opportunities and the
individual,
possibility of
tiene que ver
being
con este acceso, tiene que
individually
ver con la igualdad de
empowered
género
are
y el
related
mundo
to
laboral.
gender equality.
Inclusión y equidad de género, además,
So
son
inclusion
fundamentos del
and gender
diálogo político y
equality
social
are
en los países
fundaments
nórdicos. Y hay
of
enseñanzas
the
que
social
vale
and
la pena
political
observar
dialogue.
y de las
These
cuales
are
quizás
learnings
prácticas que
that we
traer
can
a
all
nuestras conversaciones,
learn
a
from.
nuestras
These are practices
discusiones.
that need to be
Aprovechamos
implemented in
de
our daily
agradecer este mundo
discussions.
digital que
I
nos
would like
permite
to
estos
thank
encuentros con participantes que estamos
the
en distintos lugares, que estamos
coordinators, as
cumpliendo
well
las
as having the
cuarentenas, las restricciones
possibility
que
of
imponen
having these
estos
digital
intentos por
access,
contener
even
la
though we
pandemia de
have a
coronavirus.
lockdown
Te
in
agradecemos que
trying
nos
to
permitas
contain
estar
the coronavirus
reunidas hoy.
pandemic.
Además de dar la
But thanks
bienvenida
to the technology,
a
we've
todas
been
las
able to
personas
get
que
together
se van a
today. I
sumar
would like to
a este
welcome
webinario de
also
hoy.
everybody
Aprovecho
who is
de dar el
joining
inicio, marcar el
today's
inicio con las
webinar.
primeras palabras de
And
bienvenida
let us
que
begin
serán
then
entregadas
with
por la
the
embajadora de Finlandia,
words from
Eija
the
Rotinen. Embajadora.
ambassador of Finland to Chile, Ambassador Eija Rotinen. Well, thank you for that introduction, Paula, and good morning, everybody. As the ambassador of Finland, I am grateful for being here today, starting this set of webinars on gender equality and the labor world. These our embassies of the Nordic countries have been that will be holding these seminars during the first semester in this year. And I would like to also thank Radio Cooperativa and the Nordic Council for their support. So today we are focused on this work-life balance and gender equality, and also the multiple challenges that we're facing given the pandemic. The pandemic has affected the whole world, but more seriously, women. Moving back decades in gender equality, increasing domestic violence, and an overburden of work on carrying out tasks that are not receiving incomes. So these are tremendous efforts. Yet today we are sharing experiences as well as innovative tools, trying to show that during the pandemic, it is possible to invest on gender equality. The participation of everybody in the labor world is not only important for the individual as well as for their development, but also for society as a whole, including economic growth as one of the important elements. Finland has a history of being a rural and poor country, and changes in our societies from the 50s have moved quite fast. The transformation in the transformation from a developing country to an industrialized country, gender equality has been key and has been strengthened through the participation of women in political life, the right to vote, opportunities in education, as well as economic equality. Many important decisions in order to promote gender equality were taken in a time when the world was very different to what it is today. Many of these tools are not the first ones considered when we think about gender equality in the labor world. But for example, a comprehensive education on sexuality topics is not only one of the most efficient or effective tools, but it also allows for better education, better employment, and sustainability in the long range. The government of Finland today is being led by 5 women. They are leaders in their parties, and they acknowledge that even though the government is historic, it is not representative of society as a whole. The Finnish government has a plan for gender equality, which is very ambitious, also trying to look for the incorporation of sexual diversities and minorities. The pandemic has caused many changes, but not all of these changes are negatives. For example, the pandemic has accelerated the digital leap and the opportunities that it brings along, even though at the same time it has widened the digital gap. Finland has a leadership position on access to technology and digitalization as a part of UN Women in trying to bring gender equality. We need to allow women to benefit from new opportunities too by improving the digital skills of women and girls, and also increasing the participation and leadership of women in the STEM fields, developing technologies and innovations that are sensitive to gender, ending gender violence online, and creating safe and secure digital spaces for everybody. The digital world offers opportunities which should be available for every one of us. We hope that these changes will help us to promote a cultural transformation which is sustainable. In today's webinar, we have inspiring members of the panel from UN, from the government, as well as from Nordic companies in Chile, all highly motivated in trying to learn from each other, working together in trying to promote gender equality. I would like to wish you an inspiring and useful webinar. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Muchísimas gracias, embajadora
Well, thank
Eija
you so much,
Rotinen. Es
Ambassador Ija
inspirador escuchar
Rotinen.
palabras como
Inspiring
el
words
origen
like
rural
the
y más
rural
bien
origin
de pobreza, de que usted apunta hacia
and
el
the
inicio
poor
de
origins
Finlandia y luego
of
vemos hoy
Finland.
países que asociamos
And we
con
can
tecnología,
see
con
that
desarrollo,
now
pero
it is a
además
country
con
that is
paridad,
highly
con igualdad de
developed
oportunidades, con igualdad de
with
género. Así que
technology, with gender
ciertamente hay algo
equality
que
and
podemos,
parity.
que nos puede
So,
inspirar en sus palabras de
undoubtedly,
bienvenida.
there are
Quiero
many things that we
presentar a
can be
continuación a
inspired
Francisca
by.
Evia
I would
Martini,
also
que es
like
secretaria
to
ejecutiva
introduce
de la
Francisca
Iniciativa
Evia
Paridad de Género
Martini,
del Ministerio
Executive
de la Mujer y
Secretary
la
of the
Equidad de Género
Initiative on
en
Gender
Chile.
Parity from the
Secretaria, muy
Ministry
buenos
of
días.
Women and Gender Equality from Chile. Thank you so much for having invited me. I would like to start by thanking the ambassador for the opportunity of being here representing the Ministry of Women and Gender Equality. I would also like to thank Finland and the ambassador for the leadership together with Chile in bringing together actions on the UN activities that the ambassador has just mentioned. We are working in trying to close the digital gaps and gender gaps and the inclusion of women in the technological areas. Though I would like for those to be my opening words, and I would also like to share my screen. Let me start also by thanking the Nordic embassies to participate in this webinar and to address the working conditions that we're facing in this COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic has affected us all, but not all equally. Unfortunately, women have come out worst. And this is not something new. In history, we can see that the repercussions of crisis tend to be stronger on women, precisely because there are existing inequalities. And in the last few months, the gender inequalities of the structure of the working force, together with the intensification of this crisis of care, have made the progress crumble down and in Chile. And these presents new challenges that we must face urgently as a government, as a state, and in collaboration between civil society and the private world. We know that crisis also presents opportunities, and we know that we cannot have an economic reactivation without women, 51.1% of the population of the country. I would like to share with you some figures from the current situation of women and the response of the government and this particular ministry regarding that situation. Regarding work participation between 2010 and 2019, women increased their participation in work, reaching a high point of 73.9%. Yet the current pandemic has taken us back 10 percentage points. In April, between April and June, the minimum of 41.2%, and currently it is 46%. So this means going back 10 years in terms of labor participation, which was something that was very difficult to achieve to begin with. Another way of understanding this reality is that we have 54% of women in age to work, but that are not participated in the workforce. That is to say that they are not working and not looking for work. Although men have also been impacted, the pre-existing gaps have remained and have become even stronger with the pandemic. Thousands of women have been forced of leaving this workforce and are in danger of falling into poverty. 2 million women in Chile are household heads, and many of them are heads of single parent houses. That's why it is so important for them to be reinserted in this workforce. 32.9% of the women that are currently not working have declared that they are not looking for a job because they have to take temporary or permanent care of others. That is to say, over 1 million women are in this situation. Yet in the case of men, it is only 3.3% of men that are not looking for work for the same reasons, and this is close to 100,000 men. So the lockdown, given the pandemic of COVID-19, has also brought to light the work that is not receiving incomes, work that takes place at home. Most of them are done by women. So regardless of whether they are working or not, most women dedicate more time than men to these non-remunerated work. Having more intensity of household chores, and this has an impact on personal development and professional development too. So a survey that we have carried out together with UN Women and Entel has shown that 63.5% of the women have increased the time for taking care of children or the elderly, where only 38.4% of men. The same thing with house cleaning and house chores. 59.8% of the women have an important number of hours dedicated to this type of chores. In general, the outcomes or the results of these surveys show the same trend. All of the activities related to household or care have more participation of women. On the contrary, it is only personal care, like sleeping, working out, watching films, watching the news, only in those situations where more men participating in higher percentage than that of women. And also, men feel more comfortable regarding the distribution of the tasks at home. 2 of every 5 men declare that they are highly satisfied with that distribution in comparison to 3 out of every 5 of women being satisfied. 4 of every 10 women have declared having many problems of the relationships in the house given the distribution at home, where it is 3 of every 10 men have declared. So it is urgent to have a full cultural change. Tasks at home must be shared in equal conditions, thus promoting equality, which is what we're trying to do. The post-pandemic future must have gender equality as a goal. And if these household chores are part of women's burden, we will continue having this gap in terms of gender equality. I would also like to mention the impact that this pandemic has had on violence against women. Undoubtedly, the economic autonomy and therefore the working conditions of women have an impact on the domestic violence cycles. During 2020, we have seen the calls on the hotline increased. These are women that have suffered domestic violence. They increased in 149%, and there were some months in which that figure went up to over 250%. In parallel, we can see that although efforts have been taken with the law enforcement agencies, the number of declarations filed in the corresponding legal agencies decreased. And that is why, as a ministry, we launched a WhatsApp hotline figure as the channel for this communication that had over 20,000 conversations, thus strengthening the network in trying to protect women. We have also established alliances with the bank in order to disseminate through all of their channels, the hotlines, as well as having care for women that have suffered domestic violence. Together with the Metropolitan Regional Council, we will establish new centers for women that have suffered domestic violence, providing legal counseling and psychological counseling for women that have suffered violence of any kind. And lastly, I want to also mention the importance of the current bill for remote monitoring. We believe that using technology is the next step, and this law will allow us to do so. Now, I would like to tell you as a government and as a ministry how we have promoted certain initiatives with a gender focus in order to address the challenges. First of all, the government of President Piñera has promoted a employment protection law for women to maintain their work and suspending the labor relationship by continuing receiving incomes. 40% of the request for the suspension of the contract that has been done by women. Also, we launched the emergency COVID-19 bonus for the most vulnerable homes. And out of the beneficiaries of this bond, 58% of the households were led by women. This is about 870,000 households in the country. We also have an emergency family income. 65% of the homes that were benefited from this income have women as head of household, which is 1.9 million households. So With the objective of protecting the employment of men and women, we also promoted the law for the protected raising of the children. That is for the parents that have children in the school age. Out of all of the requests that we have received, 95.5% are mothers that care for their children. We also have a subsidy for employment that tries to provide a benefit for household carers that have um, problems with their incomes, but also have contracts suspended. 41% of the beneficiaries are women and 40% new hires. And lastly, we have also got a subsidy called Protege for women that have children under 2 years of age. Uh, we have received many requests, and 76.7% of them are mothers that are working, and 23.3% are those women that have children under 2 years of age. So we are fully convinced that for the economic reactivation, it is important to include women in the industries that have usually been seen as belonging to men. That's why we have together working round tables in trying to include women in mining, energy, construction, and telecommunications. We are also working in training thousands of women in order to give them tools for them to reinvent themselves. Entrepreneurship is one way that allows women to provide resources for their households. So we want to train them in order for them to have better opportunities. So that's why we launched the program called Mujer Digital, Digital Women, that's providing digital tools for women in order to become more entrepreneurs. In the second semester 2020, over 11,000 women registered, and that is why this year we have decided to launch this initiative yet again. So additionally, in the regional conference with ECLAC, we have launched a campaign for the digitalization of women. Along the same lines, we're also implemented a pilot program together with Laboratoria, the IDB, and the civil society for entrepreneurial women. Also, in the alliance with Cercotex, we also have open capital being offered to 2,000 entrepreneurs that are women in order to provide support for these entrepreneurial activities at the national level. Together with Corfo, we've also launched a program called Par Impulsa Mujer for SMEs led by women in order to have an economic reactivation. 8 regions launched this initiative, benefiting 140,000 women. We're also creating the second stage of the initiative called Gender Equality, gender parity, with the idea of trying to promote a cultural transformation in the labor world, opening then opportunities, equal opportunities for men and women. This is a public and private alliance. We've also published a step-by-step guide of joint responsibility in order to promote the distribution of household tasks or chores inside the house. If we really want full participation of women in the labor world, these tasks need to be promoted. And also, given some mental health problems that have come up given the pandemic, we have included also this as part of a platform which is totally free, providing help from professionals on mental health and mental well-being for women. I have also mentioned this. We're leading this second stage of this initiative on gender parity, and also the Chilean Standard 3262 promoted by our ministry, trying to promote equality between men and women and generating a positive impact in companies, which is an initiative that tries to promote a gender equality system of a joint responsibility responsibility within companies and organizations. We also have a program called Jefas de Hogar, household leaders for the development of women who are working and that are also leading families. This is a challenge where we had to adapt the methodological design, trying to fit it to the health context that we were living as of the end of 2019. I would also like to take advantage of this minute to also talk about this initiative that I'm leading today on gender parity and the second stage. This is a public and private alliance between the IDB and the World Economic Forum, as well as the Ministry of Women and Gender Equality in Chile. One of the main features here is that it brings together a commitment and action from the public and the private world in order to try and address this challenge of including more women in the economy, thus bridging the gender gaps, putting together an alliance that high representatives of the different unions, companies, and the government have joined, including workers from the civil society. As we can see here, the proposition here is to move deeper into public policies and in order to try and move forward in the labor world. The objectives are increasing the participation of working women, making sure that the salary gaps are seen, reducing the barriers for women to have a leadership positions, and also creating actions for promoting the cultural transformation, promoting joint responsibility, and new measures to detect and to avoid violence, considering that companies is a place where violence could take place too. So, undoubtedly, this pandemic has presented big challenges for our countries. Thus, we must promote policies that will allow us to address the gender gaps that have become obvious. For this, we require a commitment on behalf of all society, public, private sector, men, women, the political world, the state. We will not rest because we are totally convinced that the development of our country requires that we women are the protagonist of this new society in order to make it more just, more sustainable for men and for women too. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias a la secretaria ejecutiva Francisca Evia Martini por la presentación, una presentación que, claro, parte con estas cifras que son dolorosas porque quedan realidades de familias, de jefaturas de hogar que están a cargo de mujeres, muchísimas en el país que están sufriendo estos golpes de la pandemia. Como dice la secretaria ejecutiva, las crisis habitualmente repercuten más en las mujeres y estas por las condiciones iniciales. Uno quisiera que a medida que vamos avanzando, estas condiciones iniciales fueran más parejas, las crisis no repercutieran con la fuerza con la que están repercutiendo en las mujeres. Vamos a escuchar a continuación a Paz García Fernández, que es ejecutiva senior de ONU Mujeres en Chile, representante de ONU Mujeres y parte de la campaña Generación Igualdad por los derechos de las mujeres y un futuro igualitario. Paz García,
of women and equal future for all of them. Good morning and thank you. This is Paz Garcia speaking. I'd like to especially thank on behalf of ONU Mujeres for inviting me. I'd like to greet as well the ambassador and the executive secretary of gender equality, Francisca Evia. And I'd like to as well talk to you about our initiative and what or how ONU Mujeres, the UN Women group, is supporting women and assisting them in closing the gaps and providing assistance regarding all of the losses and the negative impacts over women this last period. At ONU Mujeres, UN Women, we are contributing to the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda with a number of contributions such as helping strengthen different policies, closing gaps, contributing with decent work and the economic development with equality of gender, also closing the inequalities gaps. I am in charge of this program called Win-Win. It's a program, an initiative launched by the organization, especially addressed to the private sector, which talks about equality of gender is as well a good business to run. And this is an initiative that not just our country, but other countries as well in the region have joined since 2018 with UN Women and the ILO as well. This financed by the European Union. The main focus is to contribute to economic empowerment of women to allow for development. And those countries who subscribe to sustainable development will as well contribute to women all across the board. Here, we organize our support focused on the entrepreneurial sector by applying the so-called women empowerment principles and making sure women will apply by participating, developing, and also having access to the so-called economic empowerment. There are a series of features pertaining to the workplace, the marketplace, and the community. When it comes to the work environment, basically there should be commitment, engagement by the senior leaders in each company in such a way that these initiatives won't just stay in a file or inside a drawer or fail whenever something happens. Principle number 2 promotes the equality of gender at the workplace. In other words, that there are no inequalities, discrimination, and that development of women is allowed for at the workplace. Also, health and well-being of women workers who are normally subject to different kinds of risks. This impacts women at work as well. A very important pillar is how to promote education and development as well as training among and within the core of businesses. This involves developing networks of women, mentorships, and a number of other initiatives which are driving a visibility for women. Also, there are other initiatives that may as well be deployed by the companies in the marketplace, and we invite them all to take a look at their supply chain and take a look at where are those medium and small size women-led companies that might contribute to your supply chain and foster them, as well as the community initiatives that companies have, especially take a look at how they can help develop women and girls in those communities nearby. We also give support to companies for them to do some metrics, measurement of the progress made and not just stay in isolated initiatives. We want to offer the opportunity to all companies to join and subscribe by setting up, first of all, the necessary skills, capabilities, competencies in the company. We provide companies with training, work plans, development of strategies in order to foster and deploy policies incorporating equality of gender. We as well have training sessions, webinar sessions, all kinds of tools which are most useful. And companies many times don't know which is the starting point where they should begin when it comes to equality of gender. So in helping them, we've developed this measurement tool to take a look at those gaps in each company. And this tool could be used as a diagnosis tool to measure the different levels of progress as well that those initiatives will have throughout time. We also provide a diagnosis tool to calculate the remunerations gap within the companies. And now that we already have deployed this initiative in Chile since 2016, let me tell you, we've made some progress at this point. We already have started this new Communities of Practice, COPs, cycle with more than 20 companies in this country, which already have joined our COP and sharing initiatives and exchanging ideas in terms of how to develop women leadership, aiming at transforming work environments. We have already 4 of these communities of practice in this country, and other countries in the region have as well been invited to participate. We invite all companies which are willing to participate. We already have more than 130 companies already part of this community, but this means we can have access and reach out to other countries and communities there where we can exchange and receive or provide technical support, also allow for award winning programs to be deployed in this win-win program. I would like to repeat so important words of the Secretary regarding the figures and how important they are and how those figures have been impacting the women's work environment. But let me just refer to how this has made possible for the community to see that those mostly affected sectors in the market are led or worked upon by women who normally are homeowners or single housewives. Also in the healthcare sector, where 73% of workers are women, and they've all been subject to this heavy load, this heavy workload, and the burden of being there out in the front line providing health care. Also, there is another area in the services and sales market where 65% of workers are women and have mostly been affected by the pandemic and lockdowns. So if we take a look at our work environment and we see how really COVID has impacted women, and it has even expanded, increased the gap between women and men or the rest of the workforce. We see figures climbing, and on top of it all, remunerations women receive normally are lower compared to their male work partners, work peers, plus the fact that many women have been subject to domestic violence. So if we add to this more housework to do, more chores to be taken care of at home, this is a pretty imbalanced scenario for them, for women. So we've made a call to take action and face this crisis, incorporating equality of gender as one of the main strategies. We see one communication sent by the UN, which talks about getting women involved and incorporating women, making more visible those impacts and the differences of how the pandemic has impacted men versus women. Also, the equality of gender should be part of the economic reactivation discussion, job positions, and technology adjustments. But most above all, companies may contribute with a number of actions, such as, first of all, acknowledging the overburden of women where there are no support networks as there used to be, and which were part of this caring ecosystem around women, which is definitely impacting us. Companies may identify and spot out which people among their workforce have or are subject to an overburden and make some tweaks or adjustments to their work. We also must be able to respect domestic or house chores, the caring of their families, and allow for more flexibility for women. And that flexibility should not be reflected in a lower performance assessments or lower rated performance assessments. Normally, women are left without support, and sometimes it is impossible for these women to go back to work. Why not then apply transitory measures to help them cope and not just push them out or away of the labor market instead? Also, to add, something that Francisca as well mentioned is to promote and foster the shared responsibility of care for families. This basically is supported by the He for She campaign, which aims at balancing out the load of caring for their loved ones, and the house chores work should be equally balanced between women and their companions. So we've made a call to acknowledge the so-called TCRs, the tasks at home, not just acknowledge and make it visible, but as well redistribute that load and reduce the workload of non-remunerated work that women are subject to. Otherwise, it's simply impossible for more people to go back to the workplace or the work environment. And we're hoping that women may actually go back and mobilize to seek for work opportunities. There are recommendations for leaders as well, which talk about how important it is to generate this cultural change, train people, and develop awareness about gender topics, and also responsibilities, things that were not really that visible up until now. We talk and reach out to the entrepreneurs to lead by example. We ask them to walk the talk, to be consistent in how they as well contribute with their own families and their own home's workload. They should walk the talk as well and be a role model in such a way that domestic work, housework is more equitable, and women may really have the chance to go back, hopefully, to work and be able to close those gaps that we see are really devastating. And we definitely, in doing this, will help empower women in the work environment. Thank you, Paula. This is all I had to share with you for now. Here's my contact information. I'd also like to share with you some material we have available. This is about some seminars that we held. You can also have access to that information through our webpage, or you can ask for it in my email address. Thank you, Paz. Thank you, Paz Garcia. Of course, there's no doubt we need to acknowledge, redistribute the load, and reduce this overburden of women. And, well, basically, taking care of this will help not just women go back to work, but as well generate a general benefit for the society as a whole, and having the right, the proper balance of responsibilities on a win-win basis. This is a good incentive, I think, driven by UN Women. Also, we want to hear the Finnish point of view from Nivo Inc. Corporation. This is a Finnish company which aims at building a sustainable and sound basis for maternity and global sanitary education. This is based on the Nopola focus that we have heard of, which maybe was maybe more visible through this box that was shipped to the newborns in the Nordic countries, which was so surprising to the rest of the world. This enables facilitate the raising of children, since there early days, we will hear Thomas Niemann, General Director of Nivo, Inc.
Dear panelists, ladies, I wish to thank Finnish Embassy and Ambassador Rotinen for giving me the opportunity to speak at this prestige event. I hope my message will, for its small part, help us move towards equality for all. At Global, we believe that true equality comes from shared understanding, and that shared understanding can come from shared access to knowledge, facts, and data. This is why our greatest passion is to give everyone equal access to knowledge. We have built and designed our platform to fulfill this dream of ours. The main focus of our operation is in the field of preventive care and in maternal care, following the footsteps of one of the greatest social innovations in Finland's own history, Neuvola, one of the country's crown jewels. Neuvola is the universal maternity and newborn care systems in Finland, providing essential information and care to pregnant women and families. The Neuvola clinics continue to do this until the child turns 7 years old. When a woman becomes pregnant, it can cause great uncertainty and stress for both her and the child's father, as well as for the people close to them. One of the core ideas of Neuvola is that every child should have a safe and secure home where everyone can feel loved. To make this a reality, it is essential that the parents respect and understand each other. This is one of the things where Neuvola's tools can be of help. When this foundation of good relationship is established, parents can encourage and take care of each other in such a way that the child also feels loved and secure. Neuvola can give men the means to better appreciate and support women during pregnancy. If all men fully understood the near miracles that are required from women during pregnancy, I am sure that we, men, would see their true strength. The strength that women possess is different than the of men. The simplest way I see this is that whereas men see themselves as strong, women who are truly strong. If these two great attributes, power and strength, are combined, one can only imagine how powerful and strong we can be together. This fundamental idea reflects family synergies. It can be reflected at the level of societies and communities, and it can finally have an effect at the country level. Big and groundbreaking things start the same way as all things, small steps, like a human life. We need to start to learn, and to learn, we need to give everyone access to knowledge. Because with knowledge comes perspective, and with perspective comes understanding. If we all understand and value each other, we will start the path of equality. I thank you all for this time to share this important mission. I truly hope that the seed of the idea of understanding has been planted in our minds, and that we nurture it and we let it grow. I wish you all good health, and thank you.
Ahí está parte de la experiencia de esta empresa Neuvo Inc., que voz de su director
Okay, so
general.
this is the experience of Neuvo Inc. As addressed by Thomas Niemann, also sharing with us the necessary knowledge. For example, the child raising task is part of this journey towards gender equality, which should be present in every single aspect of our lives, and in particular in the work-related tasks. We will now hear Macarena Vallejo Fernández, who is the marketing director of Mezzo Autotech. Mezzo also includes, as part of the working standards, the standard on gender equality. So she will share with us this whole Finnish approach from the company point of view, and also access, for example, to access to sex gender equality education. So let's see how this works in a company. Macarena, the floor is yours. Thank you, Paula. Thank you for that presentation. I want to greet the ambassador, the minister of Finland, UN Women, and the rest of the members of the panel here. Mezzo, it's a Finnish company with over 150 years, and we operate in over 50 countries, and the DNA of the country from its values are based on equal rights for all of the members of the company. We're quite a diverse professional teams. We have over 50 nationalities working at the company, where gender, race, age, religion, disabilities are not a hurdle to work in Mezzo Autotech. For us, it is key to meet the standard of our clients. This is our benchmark. And from there, we have understood that many of them were moving forward in terms of diversity, but with a focus on gender equality. That led us into having an internal review, learning about our gaps, and then improving upon them. Our clients are the drive force. They are the benchmark. And that's how we have put together a plan to put it into action. It is important to say that we did have a little bit of an advantage. Since the company is Finnish, it has highly structured values based on gender equality. So it wasn't very difficult to put this into action at the national level. So from this point of view, we started analyzing, we started looking, we started seeing, and we came across different models that could be followed. We talked with the Ministry of Energy that had made a lot of progress on this, and they were using the Australian model. We talked to our clients and we saw that the standard 3262, the integrated management model, was the one that was being used. We also approached UN Women. They opened up our minds in terms of gender equality too. Now, with a wide, diverse team, multidisciplinary team within the company, we put all of these topics on the table. And since our clients are our benchmark, we decided to get certified on standard 3262. And happily today, we can say that we are the first mining vendor certified under this standard. Also, establishing a quota does not really solve the real problem, and we totally agree with that. We know that the cultural transformation of organizations is key, so we're working on that on a daily basis. But we also know that we cannot make improvements if we cannot measure things. So we've established a strategic plan, 2020 to 2025, that tries to promote the inclusion of women, equity, development, and retention too. So this is an opportunity, not only for our company and for our industry, but also for the country, as this can have a very high social impact. We've had interesting points in this strategic agenda, which came from an internal plan that we developed a couple of years ago, which is called Mezzo Autotech Más Mujer, More Women. And the objective of this plan is to provide equal opportunities to men and women in order to have a benefit, the final benefit, which is the families of our workers. So from this point of view, we said we're going to have an integrated, comprehensive management system that will allow us to measure, to carry out a diagnosis, to get to know our gaps, to reduce them, but also another strategic plan related to the general strategic approach of the company. When we have the commitment from the top, CEO or general manager, that is the most important and first step. Having that commitment, things become easier. Fortunately, at Mezzo Autotech, we have the commitment from Eduardo Nilo, who is the regional manager, who took this challenge and who has been the pioneer in this cultural change. And at the same time, he has promoted the whole executive team to become strategically and fundamentally involved in this plan. The strategic agenda is actually quite clear. As an objective, we have increasing the staffing of women. It is currently 11%, and we want to get to 20%. Hopefully, we'll be able to exceed that. We want to be very ambitious. But that increase is not only on positions that are usually held by men. Not only that, we also want development of women who are leaders currently, but who can really have decision-making positions. We want to have more women as managers, as directors, as leaders, as board members. So we are promoting this, and we have looked at the standard because we want to improve on the salary gap. We want equality when it comes to remunerations. Also, we want to do away with biases when we do hiring, recruiting, when we want to do promotions too. All of this with an approach on sustainability. We also want to create awareness between our strategic partners in order to follow our standard. I would also like to say that Mezzo Autotech and in this strategic agenda in a 5-year plan, we really want to address the figures by the industry. For example, the study from large mining sector, which goes from 2019 to 28, which declares a demand to 2028 of close to 8,000 posts in positions that are generally of men. For example, electrical maintenance workers. So we said, how can we help our sector to try and achieve these ambitious figures in order to trying to train women to have the necessary competencies as maintainers, as electrical technicians, to have them prepared to join the workforce when we as providers have them and when the other companies require them too. So we have agreements with schools, secondary schools, with young people for them to get acquainted with this industry and to motivate them into more generally men-held positions. So we've had motivational talks with women to try and promote them for taking up these kind of positions. Another important factor that we have put a lot of emphasis on is how we can make this industry attractive for girls and many of the posts that are demanded by this industry so that they are well acknowledged in a space that's usually occupied by men. And that's why we want to promote women in leadership positions where women can feel truly represented so that we can give some room and some alternatives as future of options for women. So I just want to make a final reflection. We know that the inclusion of women not only will add more wealth in terms of sustainability, equity, but also it will have an important social impact by expanding the socioeconomic benefits to a segment that had never before been incorporated or included: women. The mining industry has the possibility of becoming a public benchmark, a public reference in trying to break down paradigms and barriers, especially considering that it's a sector that is privileged, economically speaking, with many work opportunities. So as a vendor, as a provider, as a supplier in the mining industry, we want to be a benchmark. We want to turn the mining sector a more diverse and equitable sector, providing a better world for everybody without gender biases, with equal representation by men and women. That's what I can tell you about the things that we are doing at the company and the commitment that we have acquired with our workers, whether they be men or women, but also with the country.
Muchas gracias, Macarena Vallejo,
Oh,
por la exposición.
thank you,
Quiero
Macarena
aprovechar
Vallejo,
de
for that presentation.
saludar que se
I
escucha
want to
alguna guagua en alguno de los...
greet.
en algún lugar hay una guagua, sí,
Somebody has a baby. Yes,
Okay,
it's me. It's me.
yo
There's a
solo quería
baby in the
saludar
background.
porque
No,
creo
I
que
just
tiene que
wanted
ver
to
con
say hey,
esta
because
necesidad
precisely
en la
that's
que estamos
going to
siempre las
highlight
mujeres, ¿no es
the
cierto?
kind of things that we're doing, the kind of things that we're talking about here,
compatibilizar, que debería ser
working
más
and at the same
intento, debería ser
time
la realidad de
having
compatibilizar
children. So
nuestra
we
vida
should
laboral,
be
también las tareas domésticas,
very
ojalá
empathetic
compartidas
with
de la
that.
mejor manera. Así
Great
que
words
esa
be
mención para
from
Macarena. Muchísimas gracias
Macarena. Thank you
por la
so much,
exposición, porque
Macarena, for that
precisamente estamos hablando
presentation.
de
Because precisely
de un
here
área líder en
we
el
are
país como la
talking
minería,
about
un
one of the
sector tan
leading sectors
importante y
of the
donde por supuesto
country, the
queremos ver
mining
más mujeres.
sector
Macarena
in
nos ha
Chile,
hablado de
and
un
we
nuevo
would like
11%
to
de
see
dotación femenina en
more
su
women.
empresa, pero la verdad es que
Macarena told us
la
that
minería
the
en general se
participation of
necesita más
women is
participación de
11%,
mujeres.
but in the
Eso tiene
mining
que ver
sector, we
también con
do
más mujeres
require
en
more women in
ciencia, más mujeres
general,
en
in
tecnología.
science, in
Gracias
technology,
Macarena
and
nuevamente
other
y saludamos
industries.
ahora a
Thank you,
Belén
Macarena.
Contreras, que es
And now we'll
jefa de
leave the
diversidad
floor to
e inclusión
Belén
en la empresa
Contreras,
CMPC,
who
empresa
is working at the
tradicional histórica chilena. Nos va
CMPC,
a hablar
the
de
Chief of
cuáles son los compromisos
Diversity
hoy
and
de esta
Inclusion. So
compañía y
she
cuáles
will
son los
tell us
esfuerzos que
about
están
the
haciendo para
commitments of
fomentar
this company
igualdad de
and what
género
the efforts
nuevamente en un
that they
sector
are undertaking in
nuevamente
order to include women
predominantemente
in this
masculino.
sector that is
Belén,
mostly
bienvenida.
held by men.
Thank you so much, Paula. And let me also read all of the presenters, including the Secretary, UN Women's Representative, Claudia, Macarena, and thank you for allowing me to share the experience as well. As you said, CMPC is a traditional Chilean company, and I'd like to share with you a bit of how the company has embraced and harnessed this challenge from the perspective of diversity and inclusion. Who we are, generically speaking, we are a Chilean company which will turn 101 years of history this present year. We have a number of business units which are part of the wood, pulp, and forestry industry, cellulose, biopacking, and softies. This is normally a quite masculine world, and we want to include women here. We are present in over 10 countries in the region, and we also have an office in China as well. This is a pretty diverse workforce with 16.8% of women in our workforce. This is something we really need to be quite keen on and focus on this percentage and provide an inclusion perspective here. We have also different nationalities. This is really interesting since it looks like the CMPC image is maybe that we have older people. However, over 54% of our headcount are millennials. However, we still have all of the different age ranges in our workforce. This is very valuable, and we want to basically harness this through innovation and inclusion. We know that diversity inclusion will as well provide benefits to the company. And way beyond the details and the numbers, let me just say that since 2017, the company has gone through a sustained increase in the numbers of people, women, meaning women being included in our company and all across the industry. This already is a good show of how this more diverse workforce is bringing down the paradigms and booming a lot. This has it has allowed us, to eliminate the bias, and it shows a bit of our evolution. Since January 2020, the company committed to an inclusion and diversity policy. I heard Paz and Macarena talk about the importance of a company engaging its senior leadership in terms of what wants to be accomplished in this regard. We have three main pillars here that are so relevant in building or generating this cultural change: respect, equality of opportunities as the baseline of development, and that there is no discrimination in our teams. This policy is a broad band policy, not just focusing on women, but on everyone in our headcount, which builds and has built so far in the 101 years, the history of our company. This history, this new initiative starts in January 2020 from the senior management down. And this is a roadmap which already exists. We are just starting this journey, but we are bringing the organization towards this new pathway of change. This the main focus of this initiative is on talents. This is how we are addressing this discussion, based on talent, and how talent will help drive our business to where we need. Talent no longer gets us stuck to being it women or men or younger or older. It's talent that we need to focus on. And this will definitely attract diversity and also help us deepen into inclusion using 5 main pillars. This definitely is a cross-cutting cultural change, including company governance, training of people, since of course there's many things that we'll have to stop to apply the way we have learned them and relearn. We need to definitely attract and develop talents. First of all, attract those groups that maybe don't view us as a potential or a employer of choice, but definitely be able to attract those diverse talents. It's important to consider the support that we are giving to the different industries. Our operations historically were not prepared to having women in our plants, basically factories. We want to have a more flexible structure and avoid this stiff way of work. We have 3 main focuses of work today, which of course include equality of gender and the group of people with special needs. Those 2 groups are definitely underrepresented today at the organization. And as I said earlier, we want to drive synergies in terms of the so-called generational diversity. Different age ranges in the company are welcome. We have been able to position the company and also to display the commitment of our CEO and the complete organization around this goal. As Macarena said, we definitely need to seek for a way to make this visible, make visible the fact that we are really willing to accomplish this. And there's 3 goals for 2025, 2 women-related goals: increase the number of women by 50% in our headcount. go from 2,700 to 4,125 in year 25. We also want to include here a senior position, senior roles for women. And a third goal here is to reach a 2.5% of our headcount with special needs or some kind of disability. This is globally, of course. Those three goals we have set will become our main driver. And here are two elements that I brought with me to share with you. This is something we did when we started, and I'm sure there's many companies that are also just in diapers in this sense. And I really like to share this with them. At the beginning, it was all about awareness and training, generating awareness and providing training, this mindset around equality. And this is something that has to be made visible. We have this e-learning training module, which talks about the basis of our policy, and it talks about that unconscious bias that many people have and companies have. We also talk about all kinds of diversity and inclusion topics, and we also talk about the fact that this is not something you just switch on overnight. This is something that requires time. And also another element that we have definitely worked upon last year is the fact that in talent development, we should talk or include the communications, external communications mainly. And we did this research work with nice results. We were able to demonstrate that when my communication only talks or is addressed to one gender or is sent by a supervisory line, 9% of women will only be attracted to that. Just take a look at inclusive or just neutral publications. They may reach 20 or even 32% of women attracted to reading or listening to that. So this is really important and appealing. It should be appealing enough. This perspective was our starting point to identify how we can attract diverse profiles and how we can as well invite talents and reach out to the different networks. This is in really broad terms, high level, what has worked for us. Well, definitely telecommuting, it was working from home was definitely something that made a big shift to the company and its workers. As the ambassador said at the beginning, the pandemic has brought along negative things, but as well many positive things. Hard work, of course, but also support to that hard work. We have done telework, we have done some seminars on well-being and healthcare. We've provided containment, psychological support, and also some guidelines for care at home. We here talk about families and the fact that we are working from home. We even hear babies crying every now and then in the background. Well, this is part of our new reality, and the pandemic definitely has taught us to working in different ways, different fashions, and at CMPC we're definitely leveraging all of that, all of those benefits in this new world to really drive and foster new practices and hopefully accomplish those goals, not just the numbers, but generate that awareness, that new mindset. And we have prepared a manifest really that talks about how important we all are in the company. This is a promise the company has set forth, and this will definitely help foster innovation. This really wants to reflect how the company is from tolerance, from non-discrimination, and respecting each other. this is something we want to continue to drive forward in the future. Thank you so much for this opportunity, Paula. Thank you for the presentation of CMPC. Thank you for sharing the views of the company and what the company has been striving for this last period. It's so important, especially in the current context of things. It's really important to hear how this is done through women, through inclusion, how to include women to facilitate promotions inside the companies. These are such great news. Let me now invite Claudia Alarcón Soto, who is a leader in equality and equality of gender in the Swedish company AB&B. Please, Claudia, would like to turn it over to you now.
Morning. Thank you for that introduction and the opportunity. I want to thank the Ambassador of Finland, all of the Nordic companies, also for this space for reflection and to share different experiences and points of view. I would also like to greet UN Women, the ministry, and also Paula. Thank you so much. I will try to summarize this and share with you some of the things that we have done and how we have built this. For those of you who are not acquainted with ABB, the industry, the focus is that our clients are the industry. So that is why we've talked about energy, industrialization, motion, robotics. We offer services. We offer maintenance of products in the mining sector, and also CMPC, that is to say, the paper industry too. Over 100,000 people in over 100 countries. We're from Switzerland. Now, this is Switzerland. Maybe you will remember the Formula E, that's in ABB, electromobility. That's part of the work that we do. In Chile, it's about 350 people, 65 years in this country, and we have a participation, a market share of 18% of women in the company. We share very much the same kind of characteristics that Metso and CMPC have shared with us. So how did we start in this whole journey? Well, within the SDGs in the 2030 agenda, we also joined objective number 5 on gender equality. And within the Swiss companies, within the Swedish companies, these practices are part of the characteristics that we should have then. So we started, or we signed the commitment in 2018 to be a part of those companies that are joining this trend, and we accepted the invitation, which implied a big change for us internally and for the market as a whole. In 2019, having learned this a little better, we also joined the UN Women objectives, and we reaffirmed the goal that we had. I remember this because this was the very day of the social outburst. On that day, October the 18th, we signed this commitment with UN Women. Now, but we would also like to talk from our experience being in managerial positions, and because we not only wanted to have these commitments signed and just having a few women in important positions, thinking that the job was already done. Not at all. This is precisely when we started realizing that we had to go from those commitments into action. Otherwise, it was just going to be nice words on paper. So we analyzed this internally, we disseminated this information, and we defined a policy and a commitment. And with this policy, we also set then objectives. Without the objectives, it was going to be very difficult to move forward on a plan and a follow-up, trying to have the appropriate roadmap to really move forward. So we took these 3 points that we have here. A lot of development in training and awareness, which it was a new topic for just about everybody in the company. So with the local tool that we have, that I must emphasize and that I must highlight, which is the Chilean standard 3262, which is very good. With the help of that, we created a diagnosis, and that allowed us to see which were the points that we had to focus on. So with the UN empowering objectives, together with that, we put together the roadmap because these standards and these tools from UN Women all supplement each other. So with the Chilean standard, we were able to analyze the organization as a whole. I like to show this slide because it really allowed us to have an internal view, an internal analysis. We looked at employment, we looked at professional career development, succession, remunerations, conciliation, and health. Everything is now seen from a gender perspective. So from this, we created a diagnosis coming from the standard, and which is translated into procedures, document controls, audits, and reviews that allow us to see the initial snapshot, to see the progress that we have made also. So we supplemented this with the 7 objectives from women empowerment from UN Women. And so we started moving forward, but we also addressed an important field, and that is that we have actions, not only promoting equality, but it offers this in the context of the industry, of an organization, so that we can have a better impact. That is to say, making sure that this is disseminated into the community too. And also thinking about the chain value, the supply chain. We have vendors, suppliers, but we also have clients. So if we can become benchmarks and if we can invite other institutions to participate too, then we're really contributing in this whole transformation process. So this is how we put together 5 important points in order to move forward and in order to continue developing these. Thinking about then a management system, first of all. As all of the members have already mentioned, this is not just an initial initiative or a wish list. This needs to be translated into actions. So we have it as a management system. We have metrics, we have structures and procedures. The people in the organization know that there is a platform that they can go to where many of the answers or guidelines will be found. What's expected of a company regarding conciliation, regarding gender equality, because this is not only about participation, but this is also offering conciliation measures. Leadership and the process. Everyone has talked here about commitment from the top. Well, precisely having a policy, having organizational guidelines implies this is not just focused on one person. This becomes something that is institutionalized at the company level. The third one is a big challenge, trying to involve all of the stakeholders, all the business, all the managers, all the departments, because this is no longer a topic that involves just one part of the company. It's actually cross-cutting. It's a differentiating element in the market, but that includes also some of the supporting areas, communications, HR, quality and quality assurance. All of them are important so that this whole orchestra can work well, can play fine music. So not only do we have then all of these departments involved, but we've also created a committee, a gender committee, where we propose possible actions. We have agents that are representing other departments that help us in disseminating the information so that we can get to all the levels. Creating awareness too. This is one of the important points at the beginning and still now, because it's almost just like evangelizing. We have new topics coming up, new doors opening up too. Because when we started talking about gender equality and parity, then other roads came up and new doors started opening up. So undoubtedly, this is here to stay and there's no turning back. Inclusive language. We want to be consistent. All of the discourses, all of the speeches that we have within the company are also reflected outwards. Videos, messages, pictures. The organization is truly making a change inside so that we can disseminate these outwards. So the big objective here is creating an organizational culture with values related to gender equality and conciliation in order to make a change. I just want to share here some of the points that I've already mentioned and that we keep on working with. We are working remotely like many other companies and many other industries are. But having started this 2 years ago, when we were having face-to-face activities, when we wanted to convince all of the members in the company, has allowed us to have a powerful context currently, because nowadays, today, we can see that we have the need of conciliating this. That is to say, we know what's happening under the context of the pandemic. We all are playing different roles. We're all concerned about lunch, school of the children, and our work. So this is a reality, and all of our associates understand this. So ABB has always been a multicultural company, but we are tremendously proud that within the Americas, we were the first branch of ABB that has adopted a clear pathway in moving in this direction together with the Chilean standard and with the principles from UN Women. And just last year, globally, ABB launched the policy on the gender inclusion and diversity. So within the company, we have become one of the benchmarks. Although ABB did have what was called benefits and which is now called conciliation measures, they have been studied to see if they truly make sense, if they truly make sense to all of the members of the company. Something else that's quite important that I would like to share with you is that we have addressed these kind of topics with our clients too, male and females. Our company has always been recognized as a leadership in technology, and we had never thought about bringing the clients in these kind of conversations, and we have. We've talked about these topics with them, thus expanding this virtuous cycle. This is a timeline that we love to share because it gives us a good glance as to when we started, when signing the commitment. And when we did that, we really didn't know exactly what it was about, but we wanted to participate. And we've been fine-tuning that a long time with the support from Ministry of Women that have a very valuable and useful tools that are available for anyone who wants to use them, certifications, trainings on the standard. Also, training on things like sexual harassment, for example, which has allowed us to review our internal processes so that we can have a whole new approach to these topics. It has allowed us to talk to women. It has allowed us to assess the whole supply chain. We've been able to talk to our suppliers on these topics. And although it might seem like this is quite a trendy topic, it is not that many companies that have truly made some progress on this. So that's why in this combined cycle of webinars together with UN Women, we have included suppliers and we have created a program for including new women suppliers because we felt that this was, at the beginning, we thought it was going to be very difficult because we thought that we weren't going to get women, and we have gotten women suppliers that are women providing services in this industry. A lot of communication campaigns in order to create awareness on nonviolence related topics. Also programs around universities. There we can start promoting the participation and we can start triggering the interest of women on some of these technological programs. Proudly, we can say that the new initiatives that we're looking into are based on trying not to forget that equity and parity has got to be a commitment from everybody, because this is not just about women. For us, the important number of men that we have in the company, they have got to be a part of this, and they are a part of this, and they feel a part of this. So we've put together also activities only for men based on trying to contribute towards equality with the support of Cernameca. Also, we have been doing this, and it's important to say that we have continued working on these topics even throughout the pandemic, because these are topics that have become evident and necessary to address given the reality. Also, regarding formalization and certification, we've undergone audits and we've gone into phase 2 in order to obtain the final certification from the Chilean standard 3262. That's what I wanted to share with you. I know that it's summarized, but it is what we have done in our experience.
Okay, muchísimas gracias, Claudia Alarcón, por también contarnos la experiencia en su empresa. Yo agradezco lo que se comparte, pero inevitablemente uno contrasta estos logros con un panorama general en el que los avances no son muy amplios. En ninguna de estas empresas, por ejemplo, la participación laboral de las mujeres supera o llega al 20%, ¿no es cierto? Ni siquiera alcanzamos esos números todavía. Y de manera independiente, lo que pasa en cada una de estas compañías, sabemos que en general la brecha salarial en Chile persiste. Sabemos incluso que esa brecha salarial, cuando las mujeres tienen un hijo, tienen una hija, se profundiza y en el país se extiende además por lo menos por 2 o 3 años, por sobre las
especially if women get pregnant
Así
or
que me
have
gustaría
kids.
de alguna manera cerrar esta conversación
for
en honor al tiempo con un
your
par de
views,
reflexiones
your
finales
experiences,
de
and
parte
let
de
us close
la
this
secretaria ejecutiva
session with
Francisca
3
Evia
views
y Paz
from
García
Francisca
de ONU Mujeres
Evia,
respecto
the
a
Executive
cómo observan
Secretary, and
precisamente
Paz
que
Garcia.
cuando por
What
supuesto se
your
saludan
views
estos
are
logros, se saluda la aplicación de la norma
regarding these
3262,
and
persisten las brechas de género en general,
3262
persiste
mark.
esta ausencia de
How
mujeres
can
o
we
esta presencia tan
still
pequeñita de mujeres en
generate
lugares de
awareness about
decisión,
the
gerencias
gap
generales,
that
directorios,
still exists in
y qué es
terms
lo
of
que se puede, qué es lo que se puede
remuneration
hacer. Me
differences
gustaría partir
and
con la secretaria
access to
ejecutiva,
work?
Francisca.
I'd like to offer the floor first to Francisca. Thank you. It has been such an interesting talk and hear about what's going on. Many times things are not so visible and obvious in the world we're living. What you don't see simply doesn't exist to the eyes of many people. So I'm so thankful to hear from all your views, to see what's going on. And I think there is something really important for me, and it is that And I think this is something Claudia talked about. Equality of gender is not a challenge only for women. It also involves men. And being it the case, there's a serious responsibility at work, and women will continue to come across hurdles in gender inclusion. Responsibility is vital, in my opinion, and one of the big challenges today has to do with the fact that men should as well now participate in the house chores and the house duties, and for them to become role models as well for their children, our children, since they can only learn by watching others teach them. Teaching by example. This is such a huge cultural change that will help us learn and understand equality. Equality does not mean we are the same. Equality means equal access to rights, opportunities, duties of both men, women, girls, boys, everyone. And it also means that our interests, needs, and priorities of both men and women are to be included, equally included. This is such an important task, the one we have in front of us, for both men and women to take care of and focus on, especially the non-remunerated work, which involves us all. That, to me, is my big lesson after this talk. Co-responsibility of men and women. It's an urgency, rather, Paula adds. Yes, and it has been put basically as one of the main focuses because of the pandemic. We now will hear from Paz. Thank you. Let me first of all congratulate all of the panel members for their sharing and their capabilities, for everything they've deployed, for everything they've been creating, those principles, everything they've been able to concretely apply based on something so intangible, maybe for some people. There are 3 lessons to learn: conciliation and going across this cultural change. And despite all of the devastating situations we have seen in this pandemic, we can still draw some good lessons out of it in terms of being more equal. Also, in closing the gaps, I believe women should be incorporated in the science, technology, and mathematics sciences and careers. And then how can we do this from the early days, from when girls are young, from their young years? They should not be excluded from these careers, which will eventually give them many benefits and access to the working environment. We also heard talk about the initiative of Generación Igualdad, the equal access for women to society. This is basically an initiative from the civil society, and it provides continuity to the action platform that already exists for 20 years. This is an invitation, a call to participate, to join the Foro Generación Igualdad webpage, and you will access and reach out to activists, feminist organizations, and everything that's going on around the world in the civil society in this regard. This is an invitation for everyone to continue to stay connected and collaborate, contribute in closing these gaps. Thank you so much, Paz. As Claudia said, it looks like we already are on this boat. There is no turning back. We need to get to our destination port. Thank you so much for all your sharing, for contributing with your work and from where you work. I'd like to congratulate the ambassadors and the embassies of Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. which with the support of the Nordic Council have been in charge of steering these talks. I'd also like to invite you to our next webinar, where we will talk about women in leadership positions. This also involves, of course, equality of gender, and this is due for the 27th of April. Thank you so much, Secretary. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you, Paz from ONU Women. Thank you, Macarena, Belén. Thank you to all of you for sharing your experiences and your company's views about this. And see you soon.